Am I coming through the audio now? All right, I'm just waiting. Okay. Let me know if you can. Can you hear me in the back row?
No.
All right. Our audio guy will just keep turning us up until you can keep hearing. Can you hear me in the back row?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Carrie Berg. I'm the president of the board. I would like to say thank you so much for all of you showing up today. It warms my heart that people care about the library, no matter which way we stand on this item that is up before the board today. So thank you for coming. We do have a few rules about when we get to public comments. We would like you to come up to the GS there, the podium. And when you speak, we'd like you to get your mouth right up next to the microphone and speak your piece, whatever you'd like to say. You need to state your name and your address. That is required in order to speak at our public meeting. Okay? Doesn't matter where you're from. You can speak if you're not even from Iowa. Just you need to give your name and your address. Everybody is allowed 5 minutes. You are not allowed to give your time to somebody else. Okay? You cannot come up, give your name and an address, and then say, I'd like to give my time to so-and-so to speak again. That is not allowed. Please be courteous to each other when they are speaking. When you are speaking, please speak, like I said, right into the mic so that everybody can hear you. People, when we do have people speaking, if you cannot hear, if you can just kind of get my attention and I will ask them, because they won't be able to see you saying, what? Okay. All right, so we are going to call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, February 17th. It was 4 o'clock when I started the meeting. Our first order of business is to welcome our new member on the board, Libby Whitman. Yes. Welcome. Libby, did you just want to tell us just a couple sentences about you? How many years you've been a Mason City resident? What do you like about the library?
I was born and raised in Mason City. I taught school for 10 years and then raised my kids and then went back when my youngest went to preschool and taught preschool, and now I do some home health care on the side for fun part-time. So I'm excited to help.
Wonderful. Welcome to our board.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to now open our meeting to public comments. And as you wish, you may go up to the podium and speak. Again, your name, state your name and your address, and you get 5 minutes. Mary over here will set the timer, and it'll start once you begin to speak. I do want to let you know that our board rules are that we will not respond to your questions or your demands during this meeting. We will discuss it when we get to the item on the agenda.
Not during public comments.
Not during public comments.
But we will, you can, during the agenda item, which is under information action items, for challenge.
Okay, I just want you to know that we won't be responding to your public comments right now.
know that we won't be responding to your public comments right now, so just so you don't
Your
get
time to talk.
not responding. Okay, it's your time to talk.
My name is Andrew Alexander. From 1984 to 2002, I was director of this library. I haven't seen many faces. Few old-timers here. The issue at hand has been one since the beginning of public libraries. Certain groups of people feel the need to determine what all the rest of us read or believe it. I was dealt with this particular situation you all are dealing with for 32 years as a librarian, director of 2 different libraries. First thing you need to remember is you're not the parents of these people's kids. And those people need to remember they have parental responsibilities. It's their job, not the public employee's job or the public service agency's job, to determine how their children are informed or misinformed or whatever. So, that's it. Don't let them, whoever they are, sometimes they don't want to be public, but don't let them bamboozle you into agreeing to things that the American Library Bill of Rights recommends you not agree with. That you need to stand up, and there are a variety of ways of standing up and being counted. The library board has facilities and facilitators that can help them. The law, the support of the community. It is, well, let's go back a little. I'm more of an anecdotal speaker than anything else, and I haven't spoken publicly in a very long time since I quit teaching at night. But when I was a kid, 2nd grade, somebody spray painted the F word on the outer brick walls of the public school I went to. And there were 280 plus kids enrolled in that school, and not one of them asked what that word meant. Now you can imagine that the older kids knew for sure, the 7th graders and the 6th graders, but not one child asked what that word meant. You cannot, that's always told me, that you cannot regulate what children are going to learn or what they're going to do, how they're going to react in the larger picture of things. It's the parents' responsibility to teach them. So, given that, parents have every right to do what they have done here. Petition the library board to make change. And this is being handled very professionally, as it should be. I like the way you're handling it. I wish you the best of luck. I fought this battle a few times before this room was converted from the old community theater to what it is now. People who would be censors always want to be able to make all the judgments. They want the power. If you let them have their way on these 2 books that I have not read, I'll admit honestly, but they're widely used and widely sold, you, excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
10 seconds.
10 seconds? Well, then, I'll just say keep up the good fight, because if you lose this one or give in on this one, they'll be back. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Hi there, my name is Jenny, and I'm Wayner, and I'm here in Mason City. I grew up here, Clear Lake, Manly area. When I was a kid, I had unlimited access to the public library. In the 80s and 90s, there was zero oversight by my parents what I was reading. Nothing was off limits. You name it, I read it. No book was too inappropriate for me. By the time I was 10, I'd read not only The Hobbit, but Flowers in the Attic. By the time I turned 12, I'd worked my way through most of Stephen King's catalog. Before I hit high school, I was reading authors like Joan Collins, Anne Rice, and Thomas Harris. And guess what? I turned out fine. Today, I'm a moderately adjusted adult. I've raised 3 children into adulthood. I have a professional career here in Mason City in behavioral health. I will have 3 degrees. And I still have a love of reading, so much so that I am currently trying to convert one of my bedrooms into a library in my house. I've also passed a love of reading onto at least 2 of my kids, both my daughters, not my son, who unfortunately is dyslexic. And when they were younger, the library was a mainstay of our lives. We spent many afternoons at the public library, reading books, hanging out, checking out movies. At no point in time did I have to demand that the library be held accountable for what my kids were reading. I was able to do that on my own, as a single parent, no less. Unfortunately, my adult children and technology has taken me away from being in the library for countless hours a week. But for countless other kids and adults in this community, the library still serves a purpose. It's a safe haven for some and an experience for others. And I will be honest, I did not get a chance to read either book. I only found out about today's board meeting a few days ago. I do have both of them on my to-be-read pile, but only because of the absolute tantrums that I have seen other adults have over them. And here's what I know. People who ban books aren't the good guys in any story. If you begin banning books, you will only be setting yourself up on a slippery slope. Then what? I've already seen too many people calling for public libraries to be defunded entirely and closed. What then? Losing this library would be a valuable resource in this community shut down. This is a place where people go to complete job applications, to gain knowledge, to study, story times for children, you name it. At the end of the day, it is not the library's job to police what your children are reading. It is your job as a parent. If you don't know what kind of books they are reading and checking out from the library, that's on you. Because I assure you, every parent I know, personal experience included, who takes the time to talk to their kids genuinely, have kids who are open about what they are reading. Don't buy it, don't let your kids check it out. It's really that simple. But you do not have the right to take away someone else's access to a book just because you don't want it read. Thank you.
A little shorter than Jenny. My name is Jen Cooley. My address is 120 Woodbine Road here in Mason City. I am a parent of a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old. And I would love to know if the people who actually brought this challenge forward are even parents of children who read books. Or if they read books themselves, because like Jenny, I have read books my entire life. Some years I read 140 books in a year. I read everything. I love to read. My kids read books. My daughter has a veritable library in her own room. And you know what we do? We trade books amongst each other. Even with my 10-year-old, we read the same books and we talk about them at the dining room table. That's what we do as a family. Because books are so important to our lives. And there is nothing that I will ever tell my kids that they are not allowed to read in this library. Nothing. I don't care how old they are. If they want to read it, they can read it. And that's my decision as a parent. If somebody else doesn't agree with that, that is also their decision as a parent. They can come to the library with their children, or they can talk to their children about the books they're reading. And they can say, you know what, I really don't want you to read that. But you don't get to tell my kids that they don't get to read that, and you don't get to tell anyone else's kids that they don't get to read any certain book. These 2 books are about sex education. And in my opinion, if you aren't talking to your kids about sex, somebody else is talking to them about sex. And they need to learn proper things about sex education, whether that's from you, the school, or a library. And having those books available here is a free source for people who don't have the income. I hear lots of people say, well, it's not banning books if you can still buy it on Amazon. That's a very privileged thing to say. Not everyone has the ability to buy books on Amazon or wherever. This is a safe space for people to get access to things that they may not be able to get access to anywhere else. And it is not the library's job to parent your children. It is not the library's job to define what books are appropriate and inappropriate. That is your job as a parent. If this is truly about the kids, then parent your kids. That's all I got.
Hello, I am George Reeson, 644 East State Street, and I have read both of the books. I read them this afternoon. I got them on Kindle. My children can certainly get around the electronic stuff better than I can. I'm sure it wouldn't take them long to find it elsewhere, perhaps even somewhere they didn't have to pay for. But anyway, I read both of them this afternoon. What I really appreciated about them, in addition to their straightforwardness, was that they dealt with emotional issues in having relationships and insecurities and jealousy. They dealt with social media issues. And they dealt with abuse, both to figure out if you are being abused or if you are in fact an abuser. I will confess, I grew up on a farm. I'm in a medical family. I learned a few new vocabulary words. I appreciated the non-judgmental tone of the books. So I'm about to tell an inappropriate story. I had a great relationship with my parents, and when I was in college, back in the day, I was too embarrassed to go to the university health department to ask about birth control, which as it turns out I didn't need anyway, but I was game. So what I did was I called my mom and I asked her. And I remember there was a pause and then a deep breath. And then my mother told me way more about my parents' sex life than I ever wanted to know. But a lot of people don't have that kind of relationship intergenerationally. So they're getting their information from peers. And likely from peers, they're not dealing with the emotional issues and whatnot. Anyway, so that's my mom's story. Sorry about that, Mom. I understand the urge to protect your children. I don't feel you need to protect my children, but I understand the urge to protect your children, as I feel the urge to protect mine. Sometimes the analogy of driving a car is used to discuss the topic. And people say, I don't want to give my kids the keys to a car if they're not old enough to, if they're not legal to drive. And I think they have the keys to the car already. The question is, are you going to give them seat belts and airbags to go with them? Thank you.
Maria Hannig, I'm in Mason City. I worked in this library for over a decade, started out in the children's room. I had a parent who didn't want their kids reading fantasy books. So if we allow this, where does it stop? It needs to be parents who are making those decisions, not us, not the library. It's public. Thank you.
My name is Oscar Kelly. I live outside of Mason City, rural Mason City. I grew up learning how to read, and that was never a problem for me, but I didn't really want to read until I got to 6th grade, and my 6th grade teacher said, Oscar, go find a book that you want to read. And so I did. And from then on, I became a lifelong learner through reading books. I would say that when I got into high school, I read the books that people said you shouldn't read, just because they said you shouldn't read it. I read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Catcher in the Rye. I don't even remember the others. But what I would say is, when my own children were little, I remember being fearful that something was going to harm them. And I remember thinking, wow, there's probably a bad person behind every tree. And I kind of took that to an extreme. And one day I realized, it's not true. There's not somebody behind every tree. And I had to trust my own kids. I really believe that if you're not going to teach your children about sex, that they're going to find out on their own. And especially in this day and age, all you got to do is go online and find it. And I think you're probably doing your children a real disservice if you don't teach them about sex, because none of us want teenage mothers, and we want our kids, as they reach puberty, they need to know what's going on. It shouldn't be a mystery. And I totally agree with everyone who's spoken to this point. He says, if you don't want your children to read that, that's fine. Then don't let them read that. But there's no reason that those books shouldn't be available to those who want to learn. And I think our whole society would be better off if they did learn. And I don't understand somebody who wants to impose their will on everybody else. To this day, I built my own house, and I built a library in my house. I don't know how many books I have, but you can become a more knowledgeable person if you read, and there are far too many people who don't read at all. And occasionally I'll come across somebody, I'm pretty sure they don't even know how to read because of the things they ask me. I served 30 years in the military, and I served for everybody. And I swore to uphold the Constitution, support it, and we should have the freedom to say what we want, and we should have the freedom to read what we want. There's plenty of crap on the internet that you can get to, and if you're not watching your kids, they're probably getting at that. So when it comes to something like a sex education book, if they're nearing puberty, they need to know. They just simply need to know. And I just think it's everybody's responsibility to make sure that they can find out in a safe and loving way. And it shouldn't be a mystery. Thank you.
I have some notes. My name is Shannon Snyder. I live at 417 South Vermont Avenue here in town. Libraries are more than just buildings filled with books. They're living symbols of access, curiosity, democracy. From the founding of public libraries in the U.S. to the principles championed by the American Library Association, the mission has been clear: provide free and open access to information for all people. Not just some, not just those who agree, all. When we ban a book, we send a message that certain stories are too dangerous to exist. But stories don't just disappear simply because we remove them from a shelf. They live in conversations, in lived experiences, and in history itself. What disappears instead is the opportunity for understanding. History teaches us that book bans rarely age well. In Nazi Germany, books were burned in public squares because they challenged ideology. In a dystopian world of Fahrenheit 451, firefighters ignited knowledge instead of protecting it. These are extreme examples, yes, but they remind us that the suppression of ideas is not a path toward strength. It is a sign of fear. A public library serves a diverse public. It reflects many cultures, identities, struggles, and dreams. To remove books because they make some uncomfortable is to erase the experiences of others. Discomfort is not harm. Growth begins with encountering perspectives that are different from our own. When a young person reads about someone whose life looks nothing like theirs, empathy expands. When someone sees their own story reflected on a page for the first time, they feel less alone. That's not dangerous, but it is powerful. Book bans undermine trust in our librarians as well. Trained professionals who carefully select materials based on educational value, community needs, and intellectual freedom. They're not activists pushing agendas. They're stewards of information. At its heart, this debate is not about a single title. It's about who gets to decide what ideas are allowed. If we begin removing books because they challenge us today, what will be removed tomorrow? And who will make that decision? A library card is one of the most democratic tools we have. It does not ask who you voted for, what you believe, or where you come from. It simply opens a door. Let us choose dialogue over erasure. Let us defend the freedom to read, because freedom itself requires access to ideas. Thank you so much.
Go ahead. Kathleen Easley, 100 Lakeview Drive, Mason City. I just wanted to say that I totally agree with all the people that have said we don't want to ban books. We don't want to ban books. What we're here for, you call us the opposition or whatever, but we want to take some books and relocate them in the adult section. We don't want to ban any books in the public library. This is a beautiful, wonderful library. My kids grew up in it. I grew up in it. We don't want to ban books. So anybody that wants to come up here and talk about the banning of books, the other quote side, if you want to call us that, we don't want to ban books. So maybe this can go a little quicker.
We want to restrict books.
I'm Scott Peterson. I'm a resident of Mason City. I live on 50 River Heights Drive. I taught elementary school for 36 years. And we had a public library or a school library in our school, and I had a library in my classroom. I had parents come in, not often, but once in a long while, they would come storming in on a back-to-school night and start pulling books off the shelf in my classroom. If it had the word ghost in it, or if it had the word witch in it, that was totally, they were just wild about it. And it's a slippery slope, and you guys are on it right now, and you need to stand up for the rights of people to pick the books they want to read and allow their children to read. It's just that simple. But if you say if you give them the green light, it'll just get worse and worse. So that's all I have. Thank you.
My name is David Allen, live on 7th Street Southeast in Mason City. I'll be really short. I think calling this a book ban is disingenuous. It's about taking care of our children. Our children can't buy alcohol till they're 21, they can't buy tobacco till they're 18. You wouldn't let your kid play, you wouldn't let your kid play in the street. Never mind.
I will let them learn about sex though.
Yeah, when they're 3 years old, but I'm not here to argue. It's not a book ban, that's disingenuous. It's about taking our kids and at the appropriate age that is scientific, okay? Their minds cannot comprehend adult sex at 5, 6, 7 years old.
All right, like as I said before, please respect the speaker as you want them to respect you when you are speaking. Even if you disagree, it's their chance to be heard.
Thank you. I agree with the speaker before. We don't want to ban a book, all right? There's books I wouldn't have in there, but I know this is a free country, and the library is a place where free people come to, get books and read, and they should have a choice. But when it comes to our kids, they're falling off the edge right now. And if we're talking about a slippery slope, I think it's a slippery slope when we have books that are not appropriate for the age. And if this was an argument that wasn't proven science, I wouldn't be here talking, but it is. And it's not an argument, it's just, listen, if you want to do with that with your kids at home, that's your choice. But in the public, if we don't have some kind of rules that protect everybody, then who are we? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Kaler. I live at 1215 9th Street Southeast. And my understanding, it is not about book banning. I heard that the petition is about moving books to a certain location. Once again, I trust the library people. My kids went to this library. It is a wonderful haven for fun. You can build things, you can do lots of things here. And then as they grew, they came here. They had access to things. I know people that are my age, yes, I'm retired and older, but they come here and enjoy this library. It is a haven and community connection for them. It is the same for kids that are here. I am not a person who thinks I need to control everything. I'm a parent who had great conversations with my kids as they grew up. I have 3 adult girls now. 2 of them have growing families. 2 are teachers, and they love to read. Where they put the books, I trust the professionals. These people have gone to college. They have licensure for this. I trust them for that. And I agree with the people who are saying, not every parent wants that for their child. That's right. But then the parent needs to be the one who guides that child. Because what I have for my kids as they were growing up may not have been the same as the neighbors. But the cool thing about it is they grow up, they have great conversations about things. And from that, we can learn. So it may not be about book banning, it might be moving it to a certain section, but I say trust your gut. Keep that book where you have it, or the books. Thank you.
My name is Sharon Steckman, 1685 10th Street Southwest. We've heard a lot of good comments today, excellent comments. I looked into these books. I have not read either of the books, but I looked at the reviews, I looked at the discussion, the awards. They both earned several awards. Okay. Let's Talk About It earned from Publisher Weekly, New York Public Library Association, Chicago Public Library Association, Best Book of the Year in 2021. The Young Adult Library Association, which is part of the American Library Association, had it the Best Graphic Novel. The Sex is Funny won 3 awards as the most notable young adult book. And that's where these books are placed, in the young adult section. I taught school for 30 years, and I had, for a few years I taught 5th grade. We're supposed to teach human growth and development. I did not want to teach sex to 5th graders. That was not what I thought I wanted to do. So I kind of just didn't do it for a couple of years. And then I heard about one of my students that went off to middle school, and got pregnant and had the baby. And here's a 13-year-old pregnant, and maybe I could have done something. Maybe if I had educated that young woman, she would have thought twice about what she did or what happened to her, and she'd know something about how it all happens. So the next year I decided, okay, we need to teach human growth and development. And I was shocked by and granted, this was probably 20 years ago. I was shocked at the misinformation that the kids had, or the questions they asked. They just said, I don't want to ask my mom and dad this, but please help me, So they have questions, and where are they getting their answers? If not from a good novel that's researched and has all these great reviews, are they getting it from the internet somewhere, or from a friend that thinks they know everything? I got my sex education in my freshman year in college. At midnight, we'd all go up to Patty's room, and she knew everything. And whether she did or not, I don't know, but I didn't know anything. My parents didn't tell me a thing. So and nowadays with social media, our kids need to have a reliable place to go. And you know what? You can't get a card here if you're under 18 unless your parents approve. So there's your parental guidance right there. And as was said earlier, I trust the library to do the right thing. They review the books several times before they put them on the shelf and decide that they're worthy of being on the shelf. I think our library here is a shining star. I just love to come in, and when my grandkids come, I love to take them to the kids' room. It's so beautiful. The views are so beautiful. You can come in and sit on the patio and read a book. It's just a prize. And I hate having this kind of a meeting when they're doing a great job. And the books are where they're supposed to be. I guess that's all I wanted to say. It's a slippery slope. That's been mentioned before. You start with 2, and I know there's more that want to be talked about. So let's let the parents make the decisions for the kids. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Tim Stumo, and I'm at 1123 North Tennessee Place. And Mary told me that I could also speak at the book challenge portion. Is that correct? Okay, so I'd just like to make a public comment. Yes, so yeah, I'm the one that made the challenge. And it is to move these books to the adult section. So we're not talking about banning books. We're talking about putting them in that location. Someone asked if there was, if the person that brought the challenge had children. I have a 12-year-old, so this could definitely fit because these books are available for 12 and older. And then a few people mentioned that they haven't read the books. Is that all right? There's some, I'm going to read a little bit of the content from those books, and it's inappropriate. I know there's a young man here. I don't know if you want to leave, but there's some graphic content in these books, because I think it's important that if we're, thank you very much. And I apologize, I want to state that I would never read this in public if I wasn't, having to do so. So here's from Let's Talk About It. And there's, some graphic, there's a person having sex on, it looks like a YouTube channel. There's a picture of a penis. And it says a great place to research fantasies and kinks safely is on the internet. There are a ton of people and communities out there who share your interests and have all kinds of advice. The online world is also cock-a-block full of pornography, professionals and amateurs alike sharing their sexy adventures online. When consumed right, porn can help you discover new aspects of your sexuality and help you safely explore kinks and fantasies. But depending on your age and where you found it, porn can be unethical or illegal to watch. So do your research. Look up interviews with your fave porn performers. Go to the sites and recommend and pay for your porn. Here's a page that's got four penises on it, and it says things to try. It says, stroke the shaft of your penis with different pressures and speeds. Try mixing up your grip or switch hands. Whack it against your palm or give it some bending pressure. Tug or squeeze on your balls. If you have foreskin, play with it. Slip a wet finger between it and the glands. Switch things up and avoid constantly masturbating with a tight, hard grip, as it can make it harder to climax in the future. Try a sex toy for bonus fun. Vibes and strokers are awesome. So when it comes, so there's a person on this page having sex and someone's watching them, and it says when it comes to reproducing, the penis and the vagina can fit together to make the ultimate baby-making machine. Let's take a peek right now and see how. Whoa, that's not safe for work. Reproduction aside, your genitals exist to let you feel pleasure with yourself or others, no matter which genitalia they may have. Sexual intimacy is a powerful way to feel good and bond with another person, whether it's for a night or a lifetime. I can't handle anymore. Our bodies are so incredible. Makes me want to have some alone time with my bits. Get out of here, Shuri. Shoo. So those are just a couple of the really graphic descriptions, and there's plenty more where that comes from. And that again that's my thing is if somebody could have a library card, but that's what I understand is a 12-year-old could check this out and take that book home. And a lot of parents, I want to feel safe when I drop my kids off here at the library that they're not going to pick up a book like this and take it home. And yes, because it could easily, if someone knows about this book, they could recommend, hey, you need to go to the library and check out this book. It's got all this stuff in it. So I think, yes, the parents have every right. This should be a safe place. And I really appreciate the board and all of your time and service to this community. So thank you so much. And I know you want this to be a safe place too. And okay, and yes, sex education is important, and I think a parent can have that conversation with their kid. They could check this book out and take it home and explain it with some context. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Chris Watts, and I guess I wasn't clear on this, Murray, but you can be on the book challenge part 2, correct? Okay. I appreciate you hosting this tonight. I heard 4 people say that they hadn't looked at the books yet. I have, and that's why I stepped up here now to show the book, and then I'm going to hand these to you guys so you get a chance to look at them as the time goes on. Pay particular attention to the ones that are marked at the top. But in this book right here, we have a girl with a penis and balls and a guy with a crotch and breasts. And this is what we're talking about. It's not banning the books. I reached out, well, it's age appropriate here. So this is what we're talking about, is just making this move. It wasn't a ban, and there was an email that was sent out, unfortunately, by Mary, that suggested that I was looking at banning the books and cutting funding.
When you
I
originally-
never,
When you originally called me, you did not say that.
thank you for clarifying that, Mary. But my intention was never to ban books or cut funding from the county. It was to draw attention to this and move them from the young adult section to where they should be. And if anybody would care to see these, they'll be up here at the front counter. There's one in here that's a little disturbing, especially with all the, pardon the expression, but whack jobs that we got running around the world right now of a girl with her legs spread and a camera taking a picture of her crotch. And what does that suggest to a young kid in today's society? So I'll save the rest of it for later, and if it's okay, I'll pass these out.
Hi, my name is Lisa McCoy. I live in Mason City. And I have a granddaughter who struggles with reading. So therefore, we help her pick her books out. We don't get anything that she can't read. We get things to maybe challenge her. It's that simple. We just help her with what books she chooses. As parents, it's that simple. That's it.
Hi, I'm Cindy Richardson. I live in rural Clear Lake, but I do have a Mason City Library card because I'm rural Clear Lake and I can. And I love this place. I'm just noticing that there's a lot of judgment on both sides. And we gotta be really, really careful with that. I've read a book that has the most amazing things in it. It just touches my heart in all kinds of different ways. A lot of poetry, a lot of miraculous happenings. It's also extremely brutal. It also is filled with a ton of sex. And I think y'all know what I'm talking about. It's the Bible. And so we have to be very, very careful on judging, because what are you gonna do if the atheist child comes to the library and says, he's been raised in an atheist home, and his parents have said, you're not gonna learn about that. And he said, I heard this thing about this guy named Jesus Christ, and I'd like to know more about him. But that book has been taken off the shelf because of those things that we just mentioned. Now what? Just a thought, folks.
Hello. Excuse me, let me adjust this. Hello, I'm Anthony Reason. I live here in Mason City. And I just wanted to acknowledge that there's a little bit of talking past each other today, from my sense. One side is saying it's about banning books. The other side is saying it's about location. Both are true. From my understanding, there is currently a state house file that is looking to put increased restrictions on libraries and what books can be included, and potentially even criminal penalties against librarians who would check out these sorts of books. So, the side that is saying this is about book banning is not wrong. This particular meeting may not be about banning books, but in a sense, it is part of the broader societal conversation we are having at the state level. I would also like to address that moving a book is not a trivial thing. There is a lot of considerations that the librarians take into account. And one example I am aware of, which really speaks to this, is that there are, I don't know if this has changed since I last saw, but I was aware that there were anti-vaccine books in the health, lifestyle, and parenting section, but there were pro-vaccine books explaining how vaccines work and the science behind them in a totally different section of the library. That means that if you have a parent who is looking to try, or even a student or a child, looking to try and find a piece of information, and that information is separated, they cannot read both and decide from themselves. Not easily anyway. It takes considerably more work. So I personally think that this is not my call to make. This is the job of the library and the librarians, and I have full trust in them for making the right decision about where these books should go in the library. I will also note, as someone who was a lifeguard at the Mason City Public Library years ago, the library is not a daycare. You should not be dropping off your kids and not being there with them. I'm sorry, I know it is really hard to find daycare service right now, and it is very expensive. But the simple fact of the matter is the library does not have the resources, the funds, the people, anything to serve that daycare role. So as a parent, it is your responsibility to be here with your kids. And if you are, and you are interacting with your kids and what they're reading, I really don't think this is the problem that it is made out to be. Thank you.
Testing. Hi, my name is Kate Hennig. I was born and raised here in Mason City, and I basically grew up here at the library and developed a lifelong love of reading because of it. And I've had plenty of things I'd like to say, but most of them have been covered by other speakers before I could get up here. But one thing I did want to comment on was as a response to the couple of speakers who have actually pointed out excerpts from the book as supporting evidence for why this relocation would be a good idea. And I say that the things pointed out as objectionable in those books, you may find them distasteful, you may find them personally objectionable or presented poorly, but they are aspects of reality, they are facets of the real world. And all human beings, including children, need to know them one way or another, especially children, because children are especially vulnerable to being subjected to those things with or without their consent. So you may find the books or the way they're present, the way their information is presented distasteful, but the information they contain, especially the information you may find distasteful, is essential for young children to know, and it would be best if their parents or teachers or loved ones are communicating that information to them in a controlled way, or are going over it with them and discussing the books they're reading. But if that child does not have those people, they need to know the information one way or another, because it's part of the real world they are subjected to, whether they're ready for it or not. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Denise Martin. My address is 1216 8th Street Southwest, Mason City, Iowa. I have two masters, I'm a retired master educator, and I have a master's in child psychology. And I do want to just bring to the attention of the board, and I don't know if you guys are actually aware of this, but for a librarian, what I find offensive, you know, everybody has the right to their own opinion, but when I see that the librarian is getting online and spelling out the names of people that have complaints that want to go before you guys, and anybody should have a complaint, be able to come before you guys, in my opinion, but maybe you guys are not allowing that, I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have given her the direction to do this. But to label people by their names and then go by anonymous and everybody jumping in and sending the feelers out to everybody, you know, it's really close to doxing, and I don't think that that's right. So I wanted to bring that part to your attention. Thank you.
Hello. Megan Kapinski. I live in Clear Lake, but I have a Lisbon City Public Library card. I'm a teacher here in town, and a lot of the other points were already brought up very well by other people. And obviously, as that gentleman said before, this has been an ongoing battle for quite some time, and now it just seems like it's another way currently to plant those seeds of distrust for public libraries, for the defunding and all those other bills that they're trying to pass down at the Capitol. And it reminds me of the same way that they came after public schools, planting seeds of distrust, saying there's horrible things in the libraries and the schools. So anyway, that's all I have.
Hi, my name is Paul Deegan, rural Mason City. And to the people that have come up and said that they're concerned about these books for their children, there's something that you have control over. You should be very afraid of the internet, that they can get off their neighbor's phone or whatever, and the AI should give you absolute nightmares. So that's, you need to be able to talk to your kids, pass your values to them, and take it from there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sally Overture, and I live in rural Mason City. I'm not a speaker, so I apologize. What I was 40 years ago was a counselor for Planned Parenthood. And if you think your 12-year-old hasn't heard about sex, hasn't heard about things I haven't heard about, you got another thought coming. I wish that there had been books like this 40 years ago, so that I didn't have to tell a child she was pregnant, because she didn't even know how she got that way. That's what I wish. An 11-year-old girl. So yeah, 12 is not too young.
Hi, I'm Leslie Gangwish, and we live here in Mason City. And I don't know what I'm doing here. I've never been a part of anything like this, but I was kind of excited, and now I'm really sweating. Do you need my address? Like where my house is at? Or I want to follow rules because I'm a rule follower. So we live at 102 Granada Drive here in Mason City, and we've been living there actually since April, if you really want to know. Since April of 2012, and our family moved here from Nebraska, and the library became my safe haven and a really important place for me to bring what has now become our 5 boys. At the risk, because I know that environments like this can feel hot, a little bit at the risk of maybe making things hotter, we homeschool. And so we're the weird ones. And we've homeschooled all of our boys really from the beginning since we moved here. And the library's been a really important place for all of us because the library holds books. And not all of us, as has been mentioned, can have books easily accessible or at a limited cost. And the library has been great. One thing that I just feel important to mention in the midst of these discussions is to consider the role of relationships. When we moved here and began visiting the children's section of the library, we were able to extend ourselves and our interests to the librarians in the children's department in that section. And from there, we've built relationships with the librarians. And when we walk in, they know who we are. They know what my boys enjoy. And I'll even mention a moment when our oldest was maybe 6 or 7, and Kelly, knowing our children, came to Roman and said, I know you're gonna love this book. And to be really honest, Roman looked at her and said, no, I won't. Because it was a book that included things about evolution and things that our family, we don't agree with. But he wasn't afraid to look at Kelly, who he had known for quite a few years, and say, I'm not gonna like it, but thanks anyway. And we didn't check that book out. But over the years, we've grown in relationship with our librarians and have appreciated the accessibility to a variety of books where we can choose what we want to bring home or not. That isn't the case for all families, and I understand that, but I think it's important to consider. A couple of things that I just hope that I have time for, because I'm rambling and I'm just shaking. You guys, why am I so nervous?
Doing great, sis.
One thing that I just feel as the board would be great if there's a clearer understanding. I am personally aware that there are quite a few families that are limiting their time here in the library due to content or material that is found in the library. I'm not saying that I have an opinion on that. I just know that that's a reality. And as a public library, we do need to consider, why are patrons leaving? Why are they going to other libraries? What's drawing them away? And I would encourage back to that relationship piece for those that might be leaving due to content. We as citizens and patrons get to talk to our librarians or board to say, could you offer more of these books, or may I see these books, which is something our family has been able to do over the years. And we now have books on our shelves because my boys came in and said, can we have these books on the shelves? But I think it'd be good to clarify kind of an understanding of why are we losing patrons, or if we even have that data, if it's real. I just know that there are those that have said they don't come due to content of certain things. And again, just encouraging patrons, if you have concerns, to build relationship with our librarians and the staff so that we can have healthy dialogue in the room and with one another. I'd also like to know, again, I know you can't answer the questions now, but to consider how books are circulated or brought into circulation. And if it has anything to do with the number of times like it's being circulated in and out. So if we have, let's say, sex education books that are receiving a lot of circulation, does that mean that we get more of those types of books? Or what does that mean? I think that's important.
I guess since I'm sitting here, I might as well get up and say something. Hey, how about those cyclones? Something we can all agree on, or most of us can agree. I'm very pleased to see proponents and opponents speaking here tonight. This is America. This is what we're about. We should be.
Excuse me, can you state your name?
Oh, I apologize. I forget it sometimes. Roger Crimmins, 418 1st Street, Southeast. Not to make light of it, but it's a duck. It walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It's a duck. It's a step. I'm not going to say it's a slippery slope yet, but it's a step. And they're going to try. They're trying all the public libraries, they're trying school libraries to see what it takes to get a foot in and get started. And that's how I see this. I do also understand some people object to things in the library. I could, but God, how do you pick out 2 books? Well, how many books you got here? 100,000, whatever? And some small number of people here in town have that. I'm thinking it's part of a national kind of thing where they're giving them ideas of books to go after, but whatever. You know, it's America, knock yourself out. I'm gonna finish with something. Y'all saw Field of Dreams, everybody knows Field of Dreams, right? But it's not all about baseball. And Annie Kinsella, the little firebrand wife, was speaking at a similar situation in their small town, which I recognize as Western Dubuque, having grown up around there. Anyways, I'm just gonna, I could play it, but I'll give you an idea of what it was about though. The speech delivered by the character Annie Kinsella in the 1989 movie Field of Dreams conveys a modern message of the deterioration of society that comes from censorship. And I see moving as a part of censorship, and then we can move some other things, and then maybe we can move some stuff out. So I kind of see it as a step in censorship, and we're having a lot of that going on now. So everybody, you know, be peaceful and work it out through the board. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joan Pennington. I live at 40 Burrows Lane in Mason City. I don't have an opinion to express, I just have a question. And that question is, if we move these books to the adult section, does that mean that the children who are looking for information, the young adults that are looking for information about sex and trying to gain an understanding of their own sexuality, are cut off from those very books that might give them that information? So I think this is something that we all need to consider, and I trust the librarians to take that into account when they make that decision. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew, and I live at 1042 15th Street Southeast. And I'm 12. I just turned in this January, and like I think it's a little, how do I put this? It's a little too much for like 12. I would probably put it up at like 16 or something. Cause like I'm not like a teenager yet. And in 4th grade, there was a thing where they talked, like they split the boys and girls up, and they had like into 2 separate rooms, and they showed us a video just to like help us get to know ourselves. And I believe this helps us, this book. So I would probably put it in like a section in like the back of the mild area, like you know that the one by the kids, but not the adult.
Yeah.
I'll put it by like the end. I'll put it in the end window section. Like I've probably never seen the kids go back there. That's where all the Hallmark movies and all the boring books are. So that's just my opinion, and I think kids still need to know about this stuff, but they not too young. Like when they start getting into puberty and stuff, like that's when I think they should have it. But that's just my opinion, and we all have separate ideas. And thank you.
Hi, I was debating if I should come up here. I just want to say a couple things. My name is Odessa Flom. I'm 331 South Indiana here in Mason City. I'm a mother well, I've had 5 kids. I still have 2 that are still growing up. And I grew up here in Mason City. When I take my kids to the library, my kids kind of like go off in one area and I kind of follow them, but I go over to another area. They look at the shelves and I look at the other shelves. And I would just hate for my son to open up a book and see the images that were shown in that, even if it was accidental, you know, or to read something that was accidental. When I was young, I checked out a young adult book and it said love story. I thought, oh, how sweet. Being a little kid, you know, I was probably 6th grade maybe. Took it home and then started reading it and realized it was about sex. I felt very uncomfortable and didn't want to tell my parents about it. I didn't read very much of it. And I went back and took it back to the library and decided not to say anything about it, but it made me very uncomfortable. The children should not be feeling uncomfortable when they open up a book. They should, and you know, I know like they're saying, oh, kids are gonna learn about this. Well, there should be, I don't see a problem with having books that are about, you know, puberty and growing up and that kind of stuff. But why do they have to have details about how to have sex, okay? They don't need the details. And we went to this one meeting, they showed us images of what's in these MAGA books, of images of sex. They don't need to see it. What we need to promote is abstinence. Let's not teach them how to do it. You know, this is my opinion, okay? Unsafe pregnancy will teach about abstinence. It's the best way. Anyway, I'm just saying, these books, just move them to another area. That's it. It's really not that complicated. If it has pictures of sex, if it talks about how to have sex, let's just put it in a different area, you know? Because really, if it made me uncomfortable when I was young, it's probably going to make the kids uncomfortable. They don't want to talk about their parents about what they've seen. And I agree, parents should talk about their kids about sex. And I know that some parents aren't. But there's other ways of doing it instead of having it available when the children are not looking for it, you know, and opening up these books and just seeing this kind of stuff. I guess that's all, you know. I just want to protect my kids from seeing things that they really are not ready to see. You know, that's all.
My name is Stuart Siebel, 10035 John Quill Avenue, Swilldale, Iowa. It's actually Mount Vernon Township. But a lot of good points here. But what I would like to say is that knowledge is power to control your life and determine your future. Some people, as she said, some parents don't want to talk to their kids about sex education and stuff. But where are they going to learn? You know, it's important. You know, the truth will set you free. So coming to the library is a good thing for your kid and everybody here. And don't be afraid of what you read or see. Thank you.
Jeff Dolan, 105 10th Street Northwest. And I want to try to get through this, and I want to bring a perspective that has not been represented here today. I am an adult survivor of sexual abuse. I was sexually abused by a man who was very deep into pornographic materials. And I believe that it did not probably start with the heavy stuff. I think it probably started with simple, innocent, maybe, not so innocent stuff. And one of the things I've learned as I've kind of gone through my recovery is to understand how people get to a point where they can do to me what was done to me. And I don't ever really talk about the details of that, but I still live with the damage of that, and I continue to try to work through the damage that was done to me. And I believe one of the things that happens in pornography addictions is they do start out pretty innocent with pretty light, maybe not so harsh stuff. And what happens is it creates a desire for harder, darker, more pornographic, more sexual content, and it just feeds and it grows. And I believe that at a certain point, when you are exposed to enough of this, it really begins to desensitize you. I think it begins to create in people a callousness. And I'm also am a pastor, and I believe sex to be a gift from God, that it is a beautiful, that it is a sacred gift, that it is given to a man and a woman to be shared. And so my concern is that what happens, if these books are allowed to become more and more graphic, and that it is beginning to desensitize our children to what I believe to be the sacredness and the gift of God for sex to be shared. And that's just my concern. And I have to be honest, I've not looked at either of the books that are in question, but I have looked at other books that I think would be of similar content to what is being discussed here today. And then that is my concern, is that we can begin to desensitize and get our kids to be very callous towards something that I think, I believe for a lot of people in our culture, see sex as a very sacred thing, and we want to maintain that sacredness. And so again, I thank everybody here. I was not planning on getting up and speaking. I don't like to speak about the abuse in public, but it is a part of my story. It is a part of what I would like to see and help prevent others from having to go through what I went through. And I think that when we talk about slippery slopes, I think books that tend to trivialize these kinds of things, I think that we are starting to cross a line. And again, I'm not here to say that all people who view pornographic material grow up to be pedophiles, but I do think that there's a very, very, very high percentage of pedophiles who have very hardcore pornographic addictions. And I think that, again, there's just a callousness and a desensitization that happens in that. Again, I thank everybody here for very thoughtful conversation, and again, I would just ask you to consider this from a point of view of someone who has been at the hands of a sexual abuser. Thank you.
Could I just add one thing? I've heard the phrase slippery slope many times this evening. It's a logical fallacy if you study logic. Because one thing happens at the top of the hill doesn't mean the other thing's going to happen on the other side of the hill or down.
The snowball effect is much better.
Hello, my name is Philip Sanchez, 728 South Tyler Avenue here in Mason City. And I do have some big opinions on this. I do believe eventually it's looking for a book ban. I know they disguise it as a relocation, but there's a plot going on here. And it's looking to demonize boards, not just the board here, but other boards in general. And when two gentlemen got up and read you excerpts from these books, it was made for shock value. As I said, there's an agenda going on here, and I've seen that before at a school board election where it was done there also. So it's definitely targeted. And as I said, it's a step, as I think Roger pointed that way, but it's a step, and they're looking down the road. If they get this, then there's going to be not just these books, there's going to be another list next month maybe, because they want a victory and they won't stop. I come from a labor background, and one of the big labor activists was a woman named Mother Jones. And Mother Jones had a quote, and that quote was, "Read. Read for the coming fights." And that fight is here. Thank you.
I'm David Basner. I live in rural Missouri. I hadn't planned on speaking, but with the other man here spoke just a little bit ago about his experiences. I'd like to present something that goes along with that. I don't have a master's degree. I don't have a doctor's degree. But there was a man, and I hope I've got his name right, Jeffrey Dahmer. He was convicted of multiple sexual crimes. But he wanted to do one thing before he was executed, and that was meet with a doctor, a professional, and it was Dr. James Dobson. And the big point he wanted to make, James Dahmer, before he was executed, was that exposure to pornography at a very young age is what led him to do the things that he had, heinous crimes he had committed. And he wanted that to be known to the world. Lost my thought here a little bit, but the one thing this other gentleman mentioned too, it desensitizes the person to these things, especially when it starts at a very young age. And I'm sure by the time you're 18, it's a lot of that desensitization has already taken place. And some of this material that was presented here today, I would say was pornographic. It wasn't just educational about sex. And that should very appropriately be relocated to the adult section. And but I think we need to consider those things too. We have no problem with appropriate sex education for children, but it should be an age-appropriate basis. And like I said, some of this stuff needs to be moved. That's all I have to say, I guess. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak at this time for public comments? All right, we will move on. Our next item is to approve the agenda, and I would like to suggest to the board that we change the order of our agenda. I would need a motion and a second to move item 9A, book challenge, to be our next item on the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
No, second.
Do we have any discussion, any comments about that before we vote? All right, all in favor of moving item 9A to the next item on the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item on the agenda then will therefore be the book challenge. Before we do anything, we need to have a motion and a second regarding the book challenge.
I'll make a motion to deny the book challenge.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to deny the book challenges as have been presented in written form. We will now have discussion, which will also be with you and among the board. Again, if you do want to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address again, and then again, you have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, board members. I was up here once before, but Chris Watts, 121 Granada Drive here in Mason City. Good afternoon, and thanks again for allowing the public to speak at your meeting tonight. I'm one of the county supervisors here in Cerro Gordo, and I'm here today because I had a lot of people call me, email me, text me regarding books in the public library. I wish to begin by being very clear about my intent, which I stated earlier. Although I personally believe this material is not appropriate for children, I respect the library's broader mission to serve the entire community and support access to information to all ages. Again, I want to begin by being very clear about my intent here tonight. I'm not here to ban books, remove ideas, or restrict what adults may read. I fully support intellectual freedom and the vital roles libraries play in providing access to information. My concern is all about age-appropriate access, particularly for children under the age of 18. Some materials currently available in general or youth-accessible areas contain explicit sexual content, graphic images, descriptions, and sexual drawings that many parents would reasonably expect to be limited to adults. I believe there is a meaningful difference between banning a book and placing it in an appropriate section. And just for the sake of, I don't know, and I know you can't address me, I don't think, but in your packets, were any of you provided pictures out of those books to give you a better idea other than my giving you the books this evening?
We have received a packet with images in the book.
Okay.
And many of us have also read these books.
Good, thank you. I was elected to represent the people, and whether I have one person call me about a road or 100 people call me about a road, I take calls seriously. And that's how I got involved in this. I never thought I'd be talking about books. I'm used to dealing with bad roads, bridges, conservation. Conservation meeting started at 5 o'clock tonight for the first one I missed in 9 years. So I thought it was important that I should be here. Check out the taxpayers' concerns. There's a lot of false information floating around about funding and banding. So again, let me set the record straight. I'm one of 3 supervisors. I'm here myself, not representing the other 2 or their opinions. Never did I mention to Mary that we were cutting funding or banning books, which she clarified earlier. Thank you. The information she got was from another person, not me. Little disturbed about the false information that was spread from the public library office. I had several polite phone calls with Mary, both of us polite to each other, and several of the past board members and current members. Elizabeth, your name wasn't on the current library board sheet, otherwise I would have called you too. But very respectful conversations. I enjoyed talking to each one of you. And I thank you for serving, because volunteers are short and far between in Mason City, especially as we have an aging society. So thanks again. One former board member emailed me after reviewing the books and commented back to me, which I have an email over in my chair. This makes me sick just reading the titles. I suggested a compromise to all, and that was to move the books to the adult section and not to ban them, just kind of keep everybody happy solution. I was told they were in the young adult section and when asked what young adult age group is, was told 12 to 18. And in your packet that I provided you there's a sheet from Wikipedia. I actually looked it up and asked for the definition of a young adult. And it says a young adult is generally defined as a person between the ages of 18 and 25, although some definitions extend the range up to 34, which I thought was odd. This stage follows adolescence and is characterized by significant personal and psychological development. Anyway, always nice when people can reach a decision that makes everybody happy. We don't need any more controversy than what already exists. People were quick to complain to me on the phone, email, and whatnot. When I asked if they had looked at the books, not one of them had seen them. And that's why I asked if you guys had taken the time to look at them also. When they came up, I told them I had books at the desk at the courthouse, and I had several came up and took the opportunity to look at them themselves. Their opinion was changed also. The information that was put out there, most people don't know what was in the books. Okay, so I'll conclude with that, but again, thanks for your time and consideration, and thanks for volunteering.
All right, again, my name is Tim Sumo, and I live at 1123 North Tennessee Place. And again, thank you for your time today and for your service to our community. Life in a shared community is about compromise. We do this all the time through zoning laws, movie ratings, and age-based guidance, to name a few. In the same way, moving sexually explicit materials to the adult section preserves access while respecting families and protecting children. It's a simple, fair compromise that reduces tension and builds trust within our community. The main reason I believe the books Sex is a Funny Word and Let's Talk About It should be moved is that they objectify people, reducing human beings to tools for pleasure rather than encouraging healthy, meaningful relationships between individuals. These books include sexualized language and themes, graphic sexual depictions, and instructions on masturbation and pornography. Content that most parents would agree should not be accessible to children as young as 12 without their knowledge or consent. Our libraries should introduce young readers to ideas that foster empathy, understanding, and respect for others, not content that normalizes objectification or emotional detachment. This material sends confusing messages to impressionable youth about intimacy and human worth, presenting sexual activity as a transaction rather than a component of a genuine emotional connection. Adults can choose to engage with such material if they wish, but teens who are still forming their understanding of relationships, identity, and consent are not developmentally ready to process it responsibly. Placing these books in the adult section allows for parental guidance and ensures that maturity, not mere curiosity, determines access. Young man, I'm going to talk about a few more inappropriate things. Thank you. Okay, so why this matters. The content in these books goes far beyond sexual education. It encourages behavior that can lead to serious real-world consequences that minors may not and probably do not comprehend. For example, Sex is a Funny Word depicts a woman masturbating outside in front of a tree. If someone were to do this in public, such behavior could lead to an indecent exposure charge and mandatory registration as a sex offender. The same book depicts a young girl masturbating at a table in front of an elderly woman who is glaring at her. We must ask ourselves, is this truly what we want to normalize for our children? Let's Talk About It promotes masturbation in front of others, a behavior that could lead to suspension, expulsion, or even charges if done in public. It also encourages sexting, which can lead to humiliation, blackmail, or long-term emotional harm if images are shared. On top of that, it recommends watching pornography, a habit that research shows can contribute to addiction, distorted expectations of intimacy, and emotional detachment. Each of these examples illustrates how sexualized messaging can mislead young people into thinking such behaviors are harmless, when in fact they have devastating and lasting effects. Adults can approach such topics with experience and context, but minors simply cannot. This is why these books belong in the adult section, accessible to those old enough to understand the real-world implications of their content. In closing, our library has always balanced access with care by moving sexualized materials to the adult section, where minors may still access with parental approval. You will uphold intellectual freedom while fostering a healthier and more respectful vision of human relationships. This decision honors parents, protects children, and strengthens trust in our library as a responsible and caring institution. Thank you for considering this proposal.
Hello. Once again, my name is Kate Hannig. I live at 1627 Opal Drive here in Mason City. And I apologize for the content of my time at the podium here, essentially just being a response to the last couple speakers. But anything more original and constructive I had to say, I either already said or multiple other people have already said. So I will simply say that I believe it can be entirely intellectually and morally consistent to have not read these books when you oppose a ban, because I think it is entirely intellectually and morally consistent to oppose book banning on principle regardless of their content. And additionally, I know that a request to relocate is not the same as a request to ban, but it is still disagreeing with and disrespecting the judgment of the trained librarians who put that book where it is in the first place after an extensive review. That's all for now, thank you.
So this is going to be completely off the cuff because I did not plan anything else for the second part. So basically, one of the things I wanted to point out that according to a quick Google search, the American Library Association has young adult literature, the age range listed at 12 to 18, not 18 to 25. As somebody who has actually read young adult literature, I agree with that. So sex ed matters, right? We know that, I know that, you know that. Knowledge is power. I know I had a lot of hopes for the gentleman who came up here talking as a survivor of sexual assault. I will be honest, I was disappointed that he went to the route he did. I understand that material like this is deemed pornographic, and I would want you guys to question why. Why do we think books talking about penises and vaginas and sex acts are explicit? We all know I have 3 kids, man. Sex is a part of nature. Like, it happens. Everybody, the more you know, until you have ever sat next to somebody you care about and listened to them recount sexual assault inflicted by the hands of somebody that that's supposed to care about them. And knowing that the only reason that they were able to recount that is because you've been talking to them about sex ed since they were 10, which, by the way, girls go through puberty very, very early. So in my opinion, the younger we can start talking to girls about that, the better. I know I sat up here earlier and told you guys about my degrees. One of those was a degree in human services. I spent 5 years in this community working as a family development specialist. I worked with vulnerable families. I have sat through interviews where children had to recount abuse, to where they didn't have access to sex ed, they didn't have access to these materials, and they had no idea what they were talking about in the interview. And I would wonder how many offenders went free just because kids couldn't articulate what happened to them. I understand that we think masturbation is awful, and we think that glamorizing sex is awful, but I assure you, your kids knowing will make them better overall, right? Like, Like we've heard, there's a lot of people out there who want to hurt other people just for the sake. So I understand why the material is deemed inappropriate. I get that. Again, I'm a parent. I got 3 kids. I got 2 daughters and a son. And having my experiences to be able to teach them, because I'll tell you right now, they didn't get any of this information in school, right? They didn't learn this in school. I taught them. So, like I said, I'm going off the cuff and I feel like I'm rambling, so I'm gonna get ready and wrap it up. But I just want you guys to think about that. Having access to that book as a 12-year-old might be a world of difference for them. Because like I said, listening to a child recount, or even an adult recount the sex abuse they encountered as a child because they didn't know how to explain it to somebody else can make all the difference. Please think about that when you think of your kids, man. Come on.
Just one more thing. David Allen, 7th Street, Southeast, Mason City. Trying to put it together here. To me, it's so elementary. Thank you, Tim, for bringing this before the board. Thank you to the librarians for the hard work that you do. I think we can all agree with that. But some of the opinions here, I think are just, I can remember, I'm old enough to watch society just kind of slide. I remember the first time I watched The Simpsons and Bart said, "Don't have a cow, man," to Homer. I'm like, my dad would have killed me, right? Now it wins awards. So we're talking about the slippery slide. We're talking about things deteriorating. If a parent wants that book read to their child, that's up to the parent. A kid is a minor up until 18. And I think it is just beyond my ability to comprehend how that's a difficult thing to put it in a section where, like one of the ladies here says, you know, her kids might wander down an aisle. I mean, I had 2 kids. I couldn't, you go into a store, I've lost them. I've had to find them. What did they find? My son, I can remember the first time he saw pornography. I was sitting right around because we watched him on the computer very carefully. He looked up a word, dirty socks. You put dirty on the internet and you're going to get dirty. It has harmed him, and I won't go into detail, but that was the beginning. I regret that day still. All right? I get it. We've got to have sex education. We had it in the 70s in high school. I mean, yeah, kids talk, but I knew how it worked, okay? And I learned it from school. They didn't have a book like this that was so explicit about how to do it, how to feel, how, you know. And anyway, I feel like I'm rambling too, but I just want to emphasize that we're sliding as a society, and a lot of slippery slopes been talked about. We need to be careful, our kids. But thank you, library. I still love you. I'll still be here. But I disagree with this one. Thanks.
My name is Mark Sheets. I live on 15th Street Southeast. Listen to all this. The reason I was here today was a comment in writing that was attributed to a county supervisor threatening to withhold funding. And that turns out not to be true. Good. Oh, he did say that. Seems inappropriate, at least for a county supervisor. But anyway, there's lots of reasons books have been banned. Profanity, sexuality, religion, ethnic background, many, many reasons for banning books. 14 of them that I know of were made into movies that a lot of us have seen. The other thing I've seen here today is this guy that you keep sending out of the room, because he's my neighbor, and he's going to do anything he can to distract me. He's a sixth grader at Lincoln School. He's an 80-pound sponge. Every time I drive by that school, I know he's in there with his classmates just soaking up everything that school has to offer. He's way ahead of most of us, believe me. One of the things that I find interesting here today is there's been a lot of talk about banning books with specifics, sexual specifics. Turn on your phone, turn on your TV, watch the evening news, watch the commercials, watch the programming. Where's the exposure, folks? It's not in the library. And there's one thing that the library has that no one else has. They have a librarian. And they pay attention to what people are doing in the library. And they're going to help guide and protect young people when they come looking for information.
George Reeson, 644 East State, here in Mason City. And I just want to reassure some people here who have not read the books, which I have, that there is a lot in them about the emotional side of things, the relational side of things, something our culture does very poorly. And not to be facetious, but if you really wanted to protect our kids, you might consider moving all the romance novels out of the young adult section, because they do not generally, from what I have read of that, they do not, and adult books too, it's like relationship porn. It's not a realistic depiction. So I just want to say there was some good stuff in these books. And I would encourage you to read them. Yeah. I read Genderqueer after the last time something like this came up, and I'm okay. I offered it to my kids. You know, it's, everybody just calm down. We're all trying to protect our children. Okay?
My name is Alan Stuckman. I live at 1685 10th Street Southwest. I'm not talking about pornography. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about murder. How many books are restricted that have murder in them? Is that a good thing? Murder or pornography? I'd rather have pornography than murder. Thank you.
So my name's Matthew, I was already up here, but I just wanted to add that I trust these librarians, like, a lot. They found this book off a random Reddit post that I poorly described. So, if they can find this, I bet they can find when something's too inappropriate for us. And I just agree that however they did any of this, some people have already said this, but however they put this book, I trust them 100%. Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else they would like to say before the board has some input?
Do I have to give my address again?
Yeah.
728 South Tyler Avenue. My name is Philip Sanchez, and you're a brave young man to get up here in front of everybody. I want to talk about briefly a book that has sold over 30 million copies worldwide, and it talked about menstruation, talked about masturbation and sexual curiosity, and there were some dirty jokes in it by the author. And that book was called The Diary of Anne Frank, and it's had an impact worldwide. And I read that book, and I've read many other books. I'll date myself, and I remember reading in high school, I think I was a sophomore, about the book, if I can remember the name, Go Ask Alice. And that had a lot of sexual content in it, and I was a little bit irritated because I found out later in life that it was fictitious, and I was very disappointed at that author. But you know, those books are out there, and I think, and I hope, I should say, that you make a sound decision. Thank you.
Does any of the board have a comment or a question or something like to discuss before we vote?
First of all, my name is Darshini Giardina. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here, and for those of you who stood up and shared your thoughts and feelings. I really appreciate that. I did have just one question for Mary, and that is that we talked about these two books, and I wanted to find out with other libraries if they carry these two books in which section they have them in.
Some other libraries do carry these books.
Most libraries our size and larger
Have them. And also smaller libraries have them in our county. And so they have them in young adult, and that's their decision. And there was a little correction. Rockwell, which is in our county, Cerro Gordo, does not have any of the books listed. Rockwell City does, but not Rockwell. So.
Excuse me, I'm the director of the Rockwell Public Library. And while we don't have them on our shelves, they're still available for bridges. So they can read them. So yes, but whoever did the research, they didn't do it well enough, because they said we had every book, and we did not.
And that's Carolyn McManigal. She is the director of the Rockwell Library. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also would like to thank people for coming and sharing their views on this subject. It's helpful for us making decisions to be able to hear comments from various sources. This isn't the first time that we've had this topic before us, and we do want to make, or I feel for myself, I like to make these decisions not in a vacuum, so I appreciate the input from the public.
I'd just say thanks everybody for coming. I wanna, and I don't know how to personally, let me do this. I wanna propose something here quick. Tim, because Tim, you want this book to be removed, right? Go to the adult section.
Move to the adult section, correct.
George, you wanted the books to stay there.
Yeah.
If we give you guys a task to get together and figure out the solution and propose to the board, would that be okay?
I'd be happy to.
Unfortunately, that is not the way this works.
Well, never mind. That's right, yeah.
I have a couple comments I'd like to say. First of all, as Mary has, I have talked to Mary quite a bit about this, and many people in the community. I just want you to know that no child underneath the age of 11 can be in the library unaccompanied by a parent or a guardian. So there is no one who can access, any child cannot access these books without their parent or guardian here. You cannot have a library card at the Mason City Library unless you're 18 and have a picture ID and can prove proof of residency. So there are very few under 18 members of our community who could get a library card without parental or guardian guidance. These books are not shelved in the pathway between the main entrance and the children's section. So for parents who are bringing their children to the children's area to check out books, you can be rest assured there will not even. By reshelving books into the adult section, despite the recommendation of our librarians and the publishers, these books are recommended for young adults, which are 12 to 18 in the library. By moving these books to the adult section, it does not restrict any patron to find these books. So any child who wants to see these books, young adult wants to see these books, if they're in the adult section, they have access to it. Librarians and clerks do not restrict anybody from going anywhere in the library. My last thought on this is that we are a public library, which means we must provide books and materials that are wanted to be read by many different people. And for a specific slice of our community to think that their opinions prevent other people from accessing books is not in the spirit of the public library. I also want to thank all of you for speaking both for and against this. It is something that is very important and dear to everybody's heart, obviously, because there's a lot of emotions here. With that being said, I would like to call for a vote. We have a motion.
Could you restate the motion?
Yes, the motion as stated, motion in the second, is to deny the application for reshelving of these two books in our library.
Thank you.
It's actually the request for reconsideration. To deny the request for reconsideration.
Okay. All in favor of denying the request for consideration, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The appeal, or the recommendation is denied. I know that a lot of you probably don't really want to sit through the rest of our meeting, so we're going to kind of just take a brief pause for several minutes. If you would like to stay for our entire meeting, you are welcome. If you would like to leave, you're free to go down. We'll start to be anything. They're not on the way there. They're, as the young man said, they're filed.